They say the ground in Charleston still remembers. On a quiet August night in 1886, one of the most powerful earthquakes in American history struck the low country of South Carolina. Buildings crumbled, church bells rang out in terror. And for a moment it felt like the world was ending. But this wasn't California, this was Charleston, a city built on soft earth, old bricks, and centuries of Southern history. It was August 31st, 1886. The sun had set on another humid summer day in Charleston. Folks were winding down, reading, rocking on porches, or drifting off to sleep. The streets were still, lit only by gas lamps and the moon. Then, at 9:51 p.m., the ground began to shake. At first it was a low rumble, like a distant train or a storm rolling in. Then came the roar. The quake hit with a force that few in the region had ever imagined. Estimated today at 7.0 magnitude, it shattered the peace of the Low Country in less than a minute. Bricks flew from buildings, walls buckled, chimneys toppled by the thousands. The spires of churches, symbols of Charleston's historic skyline, cracked and crumbled. Witnesses said the earth moved in waves. Some watched sidewalks rise and fall like breathing lungs. Others heard loud booms from underground like explosions deep within the soil. It wasn't just the city center, towns across South Carolina felt it. Columbia, Sumter, Orangeburg. Reports even came in from Chicago and Cuba. The shockwave spread far and wide, but Charleston bore the brunt. By morning, the scale of destruction was clear. Over 100 people were dead. Hundreds more were injured. Roughly 90% of the buildings in Charleston were damaged or destroyed. Homes, shops, churches. Everything from modest wood frame cottages to grand antebellum mansions bore cracks, collapses, or outright ruin. The entire city looked like it had been shelled. And yet, here's what's incredible. Charleston had no warning system, no earthquake codes, no real concept of seismic risk. Yet its people rallied with astonishing speed. Citizens formed bucket brigades to extinguish fires. Makeshift hospitals popped up in churches and courtyards. People brought the wounded in wagons and on foot. The city had been blindsided, but it wasn't broken. The U.S. Army arrived within days. Relief trains came in from Columbia and Augusta. Temporary housing was set up in parks and fields. Aid poured in from across the country. But the rebuilding wouldn't be easy. In the decades before, Charleston had suffered a devastating fire in 1861. The long trials of the Civil War and years of reconstruction. Now, engineers began studying the damage, but they were puzzled. The East Coast wasn't supposed to have earthquakes like this. In California, yes. But Charleston? Geologists eventually realized that the southeastern United States sits on ancient fault lines, long dormant cracks in the Earth's crust that occasionally shift. No one saw it coming, and it could happen again. The earthquake changed how the city looked and how it built for the future. Out of the rubble came something still visible today, the Charleston earthquake bolt. These iron rods, often with decorative plates shaped like stars or circles, were installed through the walls of damaged buildings to keep them from falling. If you walk through Charleston's historic district today, you'll still see them, holding together the past. But not everything could be saved. Some neighborhoods were never rebuilt, some families never returned. Entire blocks were lost to time. The city rebuilt, but with a scar, a silent memory running beneath the cobblestones. It gave Charleston a kind of spiritual caution, a reverence not just for the ghosts of war and slavery, but now for the raw power of the land itself. In the years since, South Carolina has felt tremors, but never another like 1886. Geologists still monitor the Charleston seismic zone. They say another major quake could happen, tomorrow or 100 years from now. And if it does, the modern city may fare better, but it will never be ready. What struck Charleston wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a reminder that even in a place where time seems to stand still, where iron gates, old oak trees, and church steeples tell stories centuries old, the ground beneath us can shift without warning. Charleston survived, but it never forgot. This has been Palmetto Time Machine. If you appreciate deep dives into Carolina history, mysterious moments, and the forces that shape our state's future, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves Southern stories. We'll see you next week on another journey through time, crafted by human insight and machine curiosity.